My parents threw me out so my golden sister could move in, even though I was the one who bought the house. But karma showed up sooner than they expected. Can you imagine buying your own parents a beautiful new home, only for them to throw a huge, lavish party in it and intentionally exclude you? That's exactly what happened to me. But the real twist? It was my house, and they were trying to give it away to my sister. For the past 15 years, I've carved out a career as a senior manager at one of Wall Street's leading investment banks. My life now is miles away from the little girl who felt like a constant afterthought. To understand how I got here, we need to go back to the very beginning. My parents were in their late 40s when Madison, was born. An unplanned surprise, they called it. My mother would often say, in a tone that somehow made it worse than malice, "We didn't plan for you," while arranging my older sister Emily's extracurriculars or her college applications. Emily was 10 years older, already enough, already perfect. These innocuous, yet soul-crushing comments were the backdrop to my entire childhood, a constant reminder that I was an extra, an unwanted burden. Honestly, I might not even be here if it weren't for my maternal grandparents. My parents saw me as a responsibility they hadn't requested, but my grandparents? They were thrilled at the possibility of a second grandchild. From day one, it was clear I was an afterthought to my parents. Every morning, they'd drop me off at my grandparents' place. My father would jingle his car keys, ready to dash off to work, and say to my grandfather, "You wanted her. She's all yours." My grandparents' house wasn't just a house. It was my sanctuary, my first real home. They made sure I was fed, cared for, picked me up from school, helped with homework, took me to the park. My grandfather, a retired math professor, taught me about numbers and problem-solving for hours. "Numbers never lie," he'd say. "They tell stories more honest than people do." These lessons, spoken at their kitchen table, would later shape my career in ways I couldn't have imagined. My grandma, a former high school teacher, patiently guided me through my homework every afternoon, ensuring I grasped each concept. Her patience was boundless. "Knowledge," she'd insist with a kind but firm voice, "is the one thing nobody can take away from you." She also taught me to cook, not as a chore, but as an act of creativity and love. Those afternoons, reviewing my day and meticulously measuring ingredients in their kitchen, became my most cherished memories. My parents, usually exhausted and a little irritated, would only arrive late at night to pick me up. "Madison," my grandmother would whisper as she hugged me goodbye, "you're the best thing that ever happened to us." In her loving embrace, I could almost forget that I wasn't wanted anywhere else. They became my emotional rock, providing the stability and affection so conspicuously absent at home. My grandfather would often add, "Remember, sometimes the best things in life aren't planned." As Emily prepared for her seemingly brilliant future, I learned to live as an afterthought in my own home. My sister simply pretended I didn't exist. She wasn't cruel. She was just oblivious. She'd be sprawled on the couch, gossiping on the phone about boys and college applications, completely unaware of me playing with my dolls in the corner of our shared living room. The difference in how my parents treated us was stark and unwavering. I'd hear my mother's proud voice gushing about Emily's achievements to family and friends. "Emily got straight A's again," or "Emily made the debate team," or "Emily got accepted to her dream college." They attended every one of her school functions, science fairs, debating contests. For mine, "We're too tired. We have to work," or the classic, "You understand, don't you?" My grandparents, though, they were my cheerleaders, attending every school event with genuine joy and pride. I hoped things would change when Emily finally went off to college. I was the daughter who stayed. Surely my parents would finally see me. I was completely, utterly wrong. I went from invisible to the family maid. At 14, before I could even take off my backpack, my mother would call out, "Madison, the house needs cleaning. Start with the bathrooms." I inherited all of Emily's chores, and then some. The washing machine became my daily companion, I knew its settings and quirks by heart. Cleaning, cooking, maintaining a home for parents who barely acknowledged my existing. It was a continuous, thankless cycle. If I hesitated, even slightly, my father would remark, "You live here, you need to contribute. Your sister always did her part." By the time I was 14, my career had progressed from cleaning to cooking. The shift wasn't gradual. One morning, my mother simply declared, "You're old enough now. We expect dinner ready when we get home from work." Despite the taxing domestic responsibilities, I maintained stellar academic standing. My teachers, noticing my aptitude for economics and mathematics, encouraged me to compete in academic events. To help me prepare, my grandfather would dedicate extra time, teaching me complex concepts far above my grade level. "You have a gift with numbers," he'd exclaim, pride shining in his eyes. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Dreaming about college was my only escape. Every night, after doing the dishes, I'd retreat to my room and pore over university websites. I envisioned myself on sprawling campuses, far from the endless chores and the chilly quiet of my home. My diligence paid off. Despite my household duties, I maintained straight A's, and at 16, I received acceptance letters from several prestigious colleges, including some renowned for their top-notch finance programs. Then came Emily's engagement. One Sunday afternoon, she burst through the front door, dragging a tall, smartly dressed man with her. "Mom, Dad, this is James. We're getting married." My mother sobbed with happiness. My father was already on the phone, calling relatives. You would have thought someone had just won the lottery. My parents literally sprang from their seats. "We'll cover everything," my mother exclaimed, hugging Emily. "Our first daughter's wedding has to be perfect." For months, our home was consumed by wedding preparations. Every conversation revolved around guest lists, venues, and flowers. Expensive outfits, high-end vendors, money seemed to flow like water. My grandparents attended the wedding, but they didn't seem to enjoy the extravagant decor. My grandfather merely shook his head at the champagne fountain, and I saw my grandma scowl at a sculpture that likely cost more than a semester's tuition. They probably already knew what was coming, so they kept their opinions to themselves. The day my college acceptance letters arrived, I sat at our dinner table, 3 envelopes spread in front of me. My heart pounded with a fragile hope. "That's nice," my mother murmured, without looking up from her meal. "But we can't pay for it. We spent all our savings on your sister's wedding. Even took out a loan for it. There's nothing left for college." I stumbled over my words. "But you paid for Emily's college." I barely raised my voice above a whisper. My mother's voice was sharp, dripping with condescension. That was different. We saw potential in her. The ensuing hush was deafening, a physical blow. "You should get a job, save up some money, and take out student loans," my father interjected, chewing slowly. "That's what responsible adults do." I had never dared to leave the table without being excused, but that night I did. Grabbing my phone with trembling hands, I dialed my grandmother. Within minutes, I was crying on their familiar front porch. As he listened to my story, my grandfather's expression hardened, but I couldn't quite read the sparkle in his eyes. They exchanged a knowing glance after I'd told them everything. My grandfather took my hand. "Madison," he said, his voice calm and firm, "we've been saving for your education since the day you were born. We've been expecting something like this." He walked to his study and returned with a folder. Inside were bank statements, years of meticulous saving. "You can choose any of those universities. We've got you covered." That evening, I packed my necessities and moved in with my grandparents. When I told my parents I was leaving, they were downstairs watching TV, barely looking up. My mother said, "Whatever you think is best," her gaze fixed on the screen. Did I hear the relief in her voice? The years that followed were revolutionary. I enrolled in one of the top business schools, studying financial analysis. Witnessing my parents' poor financial management, ironically, probably fueled my passion for doing things right. My zeal and innate financial skills were quickly noticed by my lecturers. Before long, I was staying after class to discuss complex financial ideas. For the first time, someone other than my grandparents saw real potential in me. During college, I obtained esteemed internships at significant financial institutions. Every summer brought new possibilities and challenging projects. Senior managers were impressed by my analytical abilities and meticulousness. My supervisor at Morgan, Stanley, told me, "You've got a natural instinct for this. We'd love to have you back next summer." Except for my weekly calls with my grandparents, I kept my head down, focused on my schoolwork, hardly thinking about my family at all. After I graduated, I was hired by one of the city's leading financial firms, earning a starter pay I never would have imagined. I found a small, clean, and secure one-bedroom apartment. Every morning, I was thankful I didn't have to make breakfast for anyone but myself. My career took off as I poured myself into every new challenge, receiving bonuses and promotions I could only have dreamed of as a child. Within 5 years, I advanced to a senior role, overseeing intricate portfolios and fostering significant client connections. I became known in the industry for my strategic thinking and analytical accuracy. Every accomplishment, every success felt like a silent told, "Oh, you," so to my parents, a subliminal affirmation that they had misjudged my abilities. Meanwhile, from my occasional chats with my grandparents, I learned that Emily's marketing career wasn't soaring as she had intended. James, her husband, struggled to maintain a steady job. They were constantly begging my parents for money. "Your mother emptied her retirement account last month to help them with rent," my grandma told me in one of our weekly conversations. "They just can't say no to her." After a year, things deteriorated further. Even with my parents' assistance, Emily and James couldn't pay their rent. They, along with their 7-year-old twins, moved back into my old bedroom. My parents, who had once been so proud of Emily, now had to provide for her entire family, their golden child becoming a heavy burden. I maintained my distance, focusing on building my own life and career. Every bonus, every promotion, every successful transaction served as a quiet, internal affirmation that I wasn't the failure my parents had predicted. By my mid-30s, I had substantial investments and savings, including enough for a down payment on a home of my own. Then, everything changed. My grandfather died unexpectedly from a severe heart attack. It was a tragic, shattering loss. He had been more than just a grandfather. He was the father figure who had supported me when no one else did. After that, my grandma, who had spent more than 50 years with him, seemed to lose her spark. She followed him less than 2 months later. My world, my real family, was gone. At my grandmother's funeral, as I was making arrangements, I heard my mother's voice behind me. "Madison, do you want some help with the arrangements?" I turned around. She looked older, more worn out than I remembered. A part of me wanted to tell her to go, but something in her face, some raw vulnerability, stopped me. "Sure," I said to my own surprise. "That would be nice." Over the next few days, as we prepared the service, my parents began to open up. They admitted they were struggling. One afternoon, while we were choosing flowers, my father confessed, "We haven't been financially well off since retirement." He went on to say they barely made ends meet before mentioning Emily's twins. I realized my sister and her family were still living with them, relying on their rapidly diminishing income. A week after we buried my grandma, we convened in a wood-paneled office for the reading of the will. Emily and James were slumped on recliners next to my parents, while I sat opposite them. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. The room smelled of furniture polish and old papers. None of us realized it at the time, but what followed would ignite a firestorm that would forever scorch our family. After adjusting his glasses, Mr. Patterson, the notary, began reading in a monotone. I anticipated the usual legal jargon, but what he said next made everyone sit bolt upright. "To our beloved granddaughter Madison, We leave our house at 1542 Maple Street and the sum of $150,000. The ensuing hush was deafening. My mother tightened her hold on my father's arm until her knuckles turned white. Emily's mouth dropped open. After clearing his throat, Mr. Patterson continued. He glanced at my mother and read, "And a personal note from Mr. Henderson to his daughter, Margaret. Remember, Margaret, that we provided you with $200,000 just when you needed it most. As we respected your needs back then, we expect you will respect our final decision." My mother's cheeks, first pale, flushed a deep red. Emily and James exchanged anxious glances while my father stared at the floor. In the parking lot, after the notary had finished and collected his paperwork, my parents confronted me. Something desperate had replaced the calm manner they'd displayed during the funeral preparations. With a shaky voice, my mother pleaded, "Madison, honey, you must realize that we always assumed we would inherit the house. We're having trouble, but we were depending on it." My father chimed in, stroking his gray hair. "The mortgage? Emily's family's expenses." Emily joined in, speaking about how her youngsters wanted a yard to play in. But I just got into my car and left. Over the next few weeks, I kept thinking about my grandparents' parting gift. My life was well established near the city, and while the inherited house held many priceless memories, it was too large for me alone. Meanwhile, from our weekly chats, I learned about my parents' growing financial difficulties. Helping Emily and her family had drained their retirement funds, and they were finding it harder and harder to pay their own mortgage. I gave it a lot of thought. A lot. I decided I would purchase my parents a better house, one that was single-story, had a lovely garden, but was easier to maintain for their retirement years. Something cozy. I would use the money from the sale of my grandparents' house and my own savings. When I shared my concept with them, I was shocked by their response. They actually started crying with happiness. After several weeks of house hunting, we eventually discovered the ideal location. A stunning ranch-style house with wide doorways and no stairs in a peaceful neighborhood. My folks couldn't stop gushing about how thrilled they were. After the purchase was finalized, my dad said, "A proper housewarming party is what we need. It's the least we can do to make all the arrangements." "That would be beautiful," I said, intending to show them the deed at the festivities. "Just tell me when." Weeks went by. Even though I had a lot of work to do, I kept expecting an invitation. "Oh," my mom would say, "we're still planning. You are aware that these tasks require time." My father would also say, "We want it to be perfect. We'll notify you shortly." I was annoyed by their evasive answers. For some reason, I just knew, deep down, something was off. One evening, after another evasive phone call from my mother, I found myself typing Emily's name into Facebook. We weren't connected on any social media, and I hadn't seen her page in years. Just hours ago, she had posted, "I can't wait for this Saturday's housewarming party for Mom and Dad. I can't wait to celebrate with everyone in this beautiful residence." Numerous friends and family members confirmed their attendance in scores of comments. Pictures showed caterers being hired and decorations being set up. This was hardly an impromptu get-together. Weeks had been spent organizing it. My hands trembled as I called my mother. "Hello, Mom. I wanted to inquire further about the housewarming party. Do you have a date in mind yet?" "Oh, honey, not just yet," she said with sickening ease. "Most likely in a few weeks. The specifics are still being worked out. Everyone except me, apparently. As that Saturday drew near, I had to make a choice. Shall I go up to them? Do I have to let it go? How could they keep me out of the festivities after everything that had transpired? After I had purchased them this house? I would eventually find out, but not in the manner I had anticipated. On Saturday, I parked a block from the house I had purchased for my parents. I could see dozens of people mingling through the windows. Emily's social circle, friends, relatives. My father, beaming, offered tours of the house I bought, while my mother, dressed in her special occasion pearls, welcomed guests at the entrance. Twinkling lights and welcome banners adorned the mansion. Laughter and music poured out onto the street. It was obvious they had spent weeks organizing this housewarming celebration, to which I was not invited. For a while I sat in my car and watched. Emily's twins chased each other past crowds of grown-ups. Through the wide bay window, I could see moving boxes with Emily's handwriting on them stacked in the corner. The process of relocating her family's possessions had already begun. I inhaled deeply before sneaking in through the side door. The aroma of flowers and catered cuisine filled the house. I followed my father's voice and found him speaking to a gathering of people in the living room. After all these years of hard work, he announced proudly, "We finally did it. We bought our dream home." My mother excitedly added, "Don't forget about Emily. She helped so much with the down payment. Such a wonderful daughter, always thinking about family first." She paused, then, responding to a question about me, she went on, "Our younger daughter? Oh, Madison's too busy with her career to care about family." Heat sprang to my face. This incident encapsulated every insult I had experienced as a youngster, every instance of favoritism toward Emily, and every instance in which I had been regarded as an afterthought. I had never before experienced such clarity as I stood in that doorway, witnessing my parents rewrite history, preparing to relocate my sister's family onto my land without even asking me. "Actually," I said, my voice cutting through the fake cheer, making everyone jump, "I think you've got that backwards." There was a dead silence in the room. My dad was the first to recover, grinning tightly. "Madison, what a surprise! Especially since you forgot to invite me to the housewarming party for the house I bought," I said, stepping fully into the room. The quiet grew longer, heavier. Emily's husband, James, peered quickly over his shoes, asking why everyone appeared so distressed. One of the twins pulled at Emily's sleeve. "Yes, but it's ours now." "You can't expect eternal gratitude," my mother said with a hint of abrasiveness. With heads nodding around him, my father, gaining confidence, added, "That's right. And frankly, you're not welcome here. This is a family gathering. And Emily and her family will be living here, too," my mom said. "They've already sold their house. It's all arranged. The twins need a stable home." I extracted a folder from within my bag. "You seem to be confused about something," I remarked, holding out the ownership and deed documents. "This house belongs to me. I never signed it over to you." The color drained from my mother's face, turning from red to ashen. My father began to ramble on about his responsibilities to his family. Emily's self-assured grin broke when she realized her preparations were failing. Despite my shaking palms, I continued, my voice firm. "I was planning to give it to you tonight. I thought this could be a fresh start for all of us. Instead, you've shown me nothing has changed." "You can't do this!" my mother shrieked, her voice high-pitched with terror. "We're your parents." "No," I said softly, my voice steel. "You're just the people who gave birth to me. My real parents, my grandparents, taught me that family means more TH and blood. They also taught me about finances, which is why I own this house and you don't." I turned to speak to the astonished guests. "I'm sorry, but this party is over. This is my house, and I'm asking everyone to leave." My parents, Emily, James, the twins, and all their guests departed. From the porch, I observed them driving off, one by one, until the street was deserted. In the yard, the ornamental lights continued to sparkle, mockingly. Inside, half-empty drinks and discarded food plates covered every surface. The house, which was supposed to be my gift of reconciliation, ended up being the last straw in our relationship. A few weeks later, I found out they had purchased an apartment using the proceeds from the sale of their previous home. 3 generations crowded into a 2-person apartment when Emily, James, and the twins moved in with them. They tried calling me all the time at first. Their voicemails varied between angry accusations. "You've become so heartless, just like your grandparents warned us you would," and guilt-tripping. How could you do this to your own family? I disabled their social media accounts, emails, and phone numbers. I blocked them. All of them. The house is now empty. I have an appointment with a real estate agent tomorrow. It's not worth attempting to cure everything, like old photos in a dusty album. Some relationships are better left in the past. When I eventually have kids of my own, I've made a self-promise that they won't ever need to win my affection or vie for my attention. In contrast to my parents, I will love my kids just as much and without conditions, just as my grandparents loved me. The chapter of being the family afterthought is finally, truly over. Being the author of my own life is only the beginning of my journey. Love ought to be freely given, not demanded. Family is more than just genetics. Walking away is sometimes the healthiest course of action. I didn't open my mother's last unread email. I erased it. Any defenses or charges it included were no longer relevant. At last, I had discovered how to put my own value ahead of their conditional approval. Their kind of familial devotion has no place in the life I'm creating now. New opportunities await me in the future, free from the burden of attempting to win affection from those who are unable to freely give it. I learned what true family looks like from my grandparents. I'll build that kind of family for myself someday, one based on respect, unconditional love, and the knowledge that each individual is equally important. Have you ever had to draw a line with your family, even when it broke your heart? What would you have done in my shoes? Let me know in the comments below.